Introducing Oakley Meta Vanguard, the new performance AI glasses designed for athletes. With hands-free capture on an action-ready ultra-wide camera, powerful open-ear speakers, and built-in Meta AI that syncs with your Garmin devices for real-time insights while you train. Take your performance to the next level with Oakley Meta Vanguard. Athletic intelligence is here. Learn more on meta.com.
Wish you could become a morning person? You know the type, up before the sun, early morning runs, first one to the office with donuts and a smile. How do they do it? Easy. With the new Galaxy Watch 8, sleep tracking and personalized insights from Samsung Health help you improve so you can wake up to a whole new you. One who, dare I say it, skips the snooze? It's possible. Train your sleep with Galaxy Watch 8. Learn more at Samsung.com. Requires compatible Samsung Galaxy phone, Samsung Health app, and Samsung account.
Purina believes no one should have to make the impossible choice between their own safety and their pets. But nearly half of domestic abuse survivors delay leaving because they can't bring their pets with them. Through the Purple Leash Project, Purina is helping create more pet-friendly domestic violence shelters so survivors and their pets can escape and heal together. Visit purina.com/purple to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
What's up, everybody? My name is Garrett Chapman. Happy Thursday to all of you who are joining here on the live. We got a couple people jumping in already. We are very excited. We have a Week 8 matchup between the Miami Dolphins and the Atlanta Falcons, and this is a Falcons team that's really trying to get back on track. It was not a great day on Sunday, especially for that Falcons offense. The defense played pretty well, but they lose a pretty important contributor, and we'll talk a little bit about that one, where he stands there. We'll get into some Falcons injury reports. We'll kind of discuss some of these matchups here for where the Falcons can kind of take advantage of a struggling Miami Dolphins team. And then last but certainly not least, Ray-Ray McCloud. He is no longer an Atlanta Falcon, and we will talk a little bit about what the Falcons do next, what went wrong there based off of some of the conversations I've been having up there at Flowery Branch. But see some folks are starting to jump in. Welcome in. Rusty, I see you got a question, man. I will jump into that. He has a question about the quarterback position. I alleviate some of folks' concerns on that matter. He asked it over there on YouTube. But no matter where you're getting your podcast, no matter where you're listening, whether it is live, whether it's after the fact, thank you so much. Welcome in. Make sure to like the podcast. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to drop a comment. If you got a question, if you're in the live right now, or even if you're coming back after the fact, but especially if you are live, we will be answering your questions. And by we, I mean me, the host of the Falcons podcast right here on Falcons on SI here. And look, let's start here with Ray-Ray McCloud. And Rusty, I see your question. We're going to come to it as soon as we finish up here, talking a little bit about what's going on here with Ray-Ray McCloud. And it was not a good situation. I mean, we had been talking to head coach Raheem Morris for some time at this point. And I mean, he's been healthy scratching each of the last 2 games. He hasn't really been good on the field, and they dismiss him. This is kind of consistent with what we've heard. The relationship had kind of soured, and the play on the field also didn't match anything else either. And when we asked Raheem Morris about it after the decision was made official on Tuesday, he said it was performance-based. I mean, the performance was not good. He had fallen well short of where he needed to be, and it was frustrating for several reasons, because he did have a breakout campaign last year. I mean, he went over 600 yards, but at this point he wasn't even close to hitting that 100-yard mark, even when he did play. And that was a situation where, Darnell Mooney goes down with an injury, and Ray-Ray was one of those guys that you kind of expected to step up. And he was struggling with drops. He was struggling with getting separation. He just really wasn't doing his job very well. And that's why they made this decision. And I know there's been lots of speculation about Ike Hilliard and the relationship that those two had. Raheem Morris insists that it had nothing to do with it. He said pretty bluntly that it was not they were not related. The termination of Ike Hilliard after the Falcons lose to the Carolina Panthers in week 3, that was something separate versus what happened with Ray-Ray. But they did have a strong relationship. He was a big reason why he came here, which naturally that's why some of that speculation really arose in the first place. So to some level, to some end at least, it is at least understandable why it came to that. But supposedly that's not what it was. So the product of the field just wasn't good enough. And then he was a healthy scratch in each of the last 2 games. And I mean, it's not all that surprising. And this decision apparently was made on Saturday after he was listed as out on Friday, which means, obviously he was going to be inactive for the game. And then the news just became official on Tuesday. So Raheem Morris said it was something that he was working through when he was asked about it on Monday, and then the news just kind of came to light. But now what? Well, I know that we're going to talk a little bit about some options they might have outside of the building. But as far as people that they have in the building, you've got David Sills and you got Casey Washington on the active roster. Obviously you have Darnell Mooney and you have Drake London. Those two go without saying, but the 2 guys probably right below Ray-Ray McCloud on the chart, I guess, if you will. It's Casey Washington and it's David Sills. And take depth charts with like a grain of salt. It's all fluid and they generally don't release a lot of that stuff. It's just not something that they're going to do. But the Falcons team site, they release one every week, and David Sills was listed as the guy in that position. Again, take it with a grain of salt, but he has been out snapping Casey Washington. Just on Sunday, it was 29-11. So pretty one-sided when it comes down to who's getting the attention and who's not. And I think that has a lot more to do with the fact that David Sills can kind of give you a little bit more in terms of physicality and blocking on the perimeter. Casey can do that, and he does it well. But it's just neither of these guys have really stepped up and really given you a lot of production in that regard. But as far as other guys, maybe you can elevate Chris Blair off of the practice squad. I think that's probably your best option. That's one that I would like to see happen because he gives you your best perimeter presence. He's a guy who can put you out on the outside, and then actually you can slot in Drake London into the interior and get him coming out of the slot. Because one of the things that we saw from him last year is that he was one of the very best in the league when it came to playing out of the slot. Maybe we can see that from him this year. I think that there's a pretty decent chance that we do end up seeing that. But it has been about 10% lower, I think is what next gen stats say. What was it, 30% to 30%, 29, 30% of his routes have come from the slot. He was nearly 40% last year. And whenever he does play out of the slot, he plays at a really high level. He's been targeted 19 times. He's got 13 of those passes, 164 yards. That's 7th most in the NFL, and 2 touchdowns at that position. So it's really, really strong. It's 3.4 yards per route from the slot. It's the most among that same group of receivers coming out of the slot. So I think getting Drake London inside, I think, is a really good thing. And however you can do that, I think is going to be good for this offense. And maybe that means bringing up Chris Blair. But I do think that there's going to be a move made there. I just don't think that you're going to want to roll with the guys that you have there currently. I don't have a lot of faith in that, and Darnell Mooney, he's been very injury prone this season. He's been anything but consistent. He comes back on Sunday, has a pretty good game. But is that really the guy that you really want to lean on and trust that is going to give you 100% of the snaps moving forward? I think that at some point you need to have a plan B, and I don't think there is a B on the roster. Plan A is good. Like when Darnell plays, he's good, right? This is a really talented guy when he's healthy. Drake London's a stalwart. The guy hasn't done anything but play level. Darnell, not really the case. And then David Sills and Casey Washington are just sort of unproven commodities here. Casey was a camp standout, and so was David, but you just really haven't seen it on Sundays yet. So until they show that they're capable of doing it, I'm going to want to see a plan B. So do they look to add a player? I think that comes in, and that's your next big question here. So who could they add? Trading deadline, NFL deadline is coming up. It's 2 weeks away, or just under 2 weeks away. So it's about a week and a half. And the first big guy here, I'm going to pull him up and I'm just going to drop him in. Tyler Lockett. It's not the sexiest name. And look, you're adding a guy right now it's not going to be a very sexy name. Let's just be very clear about that fact. But the reason that we have Tyler Lockett here at number 1 is pretty simple, because you don't have to give up any assets to go get him, because the Falcons, as of right now, don't have a ton of assets. You know, I mean, it's one of those spots where you got 5 picks at this point. Yeah, you have 5 picks. You don't have a first and you don't have a 5th. You're going to have to give up something to go get these guys. And maybe you go give up an Arnold Ebiketie. Maybe you move on from a Kirk Cousins or something like that, assuming that you even have a buyer at this point. I know AK had his name kind of floated around in some circles, but Tyler Lockett is probably going to be your first option here because you don't have to pay for anything. And look, when he is healthy and playing at a high level, he's pretty darn good, right? He only had 10 receptions for 70 yards with the Tennessee Titans this year, but then they cut him. He asked for his release and they gave it to him. And when he was playing in Seattle, he was going for 600 yards every single season. And he can kind of give you some of that downfield threat that you really need from Darnell Mooney. And really, the most important thing, you can get a body. I mean, he's 33 years old, so it's not like he's going to be signing a long-term contract. It's not going to be a very expensive contract either. It's one where he can come in and give you an immediate presence in that wide receiver room. It's not a sexy pick, but again, not a lot of these are unless you include this guy. One of the options that I've seen a lot of people float, it's Jalen Waddle. And look, he's going to be here on Sunday. So I know that there are going to be some people who are posting on Twitter. People are going to make some comments, be like, oh, make sure that he packs his bags and he just stays here in Atlanta. Make sure he just parks it right here in Atlanta and doesn't leave. I know that that's exciting. I know that Jalen Waddle is one of those people who can really, take this offense to the next gear. Of the people who are going to be on this list, nobody is more enticing than Jalen Waddle. But at the same time, this is going to be by far and away the most expensive option. It's going to cost you, I would say, a first-round pick, a second-round pick, at the very least, a second-round pick. I mean, you go back through some of these other expensive picks that have been sent for wide receivers, such as going back to 2022. I mean, Stephon Diggs, he went to the Texans for a 6th-round pick. Stephon Diggs, that's what the Texans got, and the Bills sent a 2025 second-round pick. In 2022, the Jags acquired Calvin Ridley from the Falcons. They sent Calvin Ridley, and that was for a 5th and a 3rd, but that was also some context needed in this. Of course, he was dealing with some off-field issues. The Cardinals, when they acquired Marquise Brown, they sent a 1st-round pick. And the Cardinals got Marquise Brown in the 3rd-round draft pick. The Eagles, when they got A.J. Brown from the Titans, they got A.J. Brown. And the Titans got a 1st and a 3rd-round pick. I mean, it's expensive. And the other part of the deal is when you go back and look at all these picks, like Tyreek Hill, you can look at Devontae Adams, Amari Cooper. Some of these are deadline deals, but not a lot of them are. And look, maybe the Dolphins want to cut cash or cut down on some of their spending here coming into the rest of the season, but maybe not. It just depends. I don't think that this is necessarily one of the guys that you want to move on from because he's under contract for the next couple of years. He carries an $80 million cap hit too. So if they can if it only costs a 2nd-round pick, I think the Falcons would be, borderline foolish not to consider that fact, but you'd also have to make some money work. You'd have to bend some things around, and I'd be a little worried about their ability to do that, and they would have absolutely no flexibility for the rest of the season, and you wouldn't have a 1st or a 2nd-round pick for next year. So a lot of these things need to be considered when you talk about this. But as far as the sexiest options available, there is no sexier option for the Falcons than Jalen Waddle. But as far as one that I think is probably the most realistic. So we went to the cheapest, which is Tyler Lockett. We would go to the most expensive. And now I have one that I would say is probably the most realistic and also really, really high upside. It's Jakobi Meyers. This is a guy who is in a final year of his contract. He's already disgruntled. He does not want to be in Las Vegas. And he's had a pretty good season, about 29 receptions, 329 yards. But more important than that, he's beating man coverage. And he's doing it when Brock Bowers, of course, anybody who's a Georgia fan, they know this guy very well, that guy's really good, but he's also been on the shelf. So people have all been focused on Jakobi Meyers and taking him away, and he's still getting a pretty steady target share, and he's breaking away from coverage, and people are just locking him down or trying to lock him down, and they're struggling to do that. So he's very good in man coverage. But like I mentioned, he's in the final year of his contract. He wanted a new contract from Vegas. They didn't give him one, and he requested a trade at the beginning of the season. That's why he makes a lot of sense here for the Falcons in this spot. You could probably send maybe a 4th-round pick or something like that to go get him. You don't have a 5th-round pick. I don't know if they would accept a 6th-round pick, but if they would, great. Then go do that. But he'd give you somebody else who you can really trust to kind of take this team to the next level. And I think this is a guy who can help get you to the playoffs. And that's what you need at the wide receiver position. That's something that I don't think that this team has right now. But another really safe option here for the Falcons is DeAndre Hopkins. Again, this is one where if this was a couple years ago, this was going to cost you a whole heck of a lot. But DeAndre Hopkins is not really at that stage of his career anymore. He's 33 years old, and he's bounced around the league a little bit ever since he had his 4 consecutive Pro Bowl appearances between 2017 and 2020. But the Ravens are his 4th team, man. I mean, this guy's been around for a good bit. And I mean, he's got 178 yards this year. He has just 9 catches, but he can give you another big body if you want to get somebody into the red zone. I don't necessarily see him as a very viable option here for the Falcons, but the Ravens are also in a spot where, I mean, believe it or not, they are well behind the 8 ball, and they are almost assuredly not going to the playoffs just based off of how they started this season. They got just 1 win right now, which is unbelievable, honestly. But last one here for you, and then I'm going to jump in and take some of your questions. Is Christian Kirk. Again, this is not really one of the sexiest options here. It's not a great one, but as far as what he could potentially do for this offense, I mean, Christian Kirk is a speed guy. I mean, he's been dealing with a hamstring injury for much of the season, so his stats really aren't awesome. But last season, he had a lot of injury problems there as well. 47 passes that he caught last year in just 8 games. This year, he has just 10 receptions for 109 yards, but he gives you a speed element. And if you want kind of a 1-for-1 replacement, just kind of an upgrade, I would say he's a better player than Ray-Ray McCloud is, just 1-for-1. But if you really want to replicate kind of what Ray-Ray was and get somebody in the slot, I think that's somebody Christian Kirk can probably do. And you can get him for, an affordable price. All right. So I'm going to jump into some of your comments. I'm going to see what you guys had to say. Sam Klontz, I see latest on Billy, Jalen, and Storm. We will get into that here in just a moment. If you had anything else, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I see Brennan jumped in here. He says, what are some wide receiver options that are movable for a late pick? Yep. So I jump right into that. I think that there are some viable picks, man. I think that those are a couple. And it's just, those are guys who I see on teams who don't really have a big role, or they're teams who are not really in a situation where they're kind of going for anything at this point this year. I mean, Christian Kirk is also on the outside looking in a roster that's loaded with young wide receiver talent. That's why I think that there could be an option there. But there are a bunch of different people. Ooh, I think my puppy just walked in. I'm going to close that door. Sorry about that. There she is. She's just a little puppy. But there are a lot of different options that the Falcons could potentially go and get. It just depends on what the best one and really what the most affordable one is. Because I don't think that this year necessarily is the year that you're going for it per se. Like, you're not going to go win a Super Bowl this year. This is just not a Super Bowl team. I mean, I don't think anybody can look you honestly in the face and say this is a Super Bowl winning Falcons team. I don't think it is, but the playoffs are very much on the table. This is a team who can absolutely go to the postseason. It's just, at what point do they say screw it and go for it? Because I think if you're Terry Fontenot, if you're Raheem Morris, you have to go make a deal, because this is not, they don't have a lot of leverage. They don't have a lot of leeway. This is not a spot where they're really in a great spot. If they don't make the postseason, you're going to start having a lot of questions from outside the building, and you're going to have to answer to Arthur Blank and everything else. So this is a team who needs to make the postseason. So do you want to go for it as far as making a run at the playoffs? This might be one of the options that they have to take. I'm going to keep on rolling through some of your comments, and then I'm going to go back up to the top. I know I saw a couple of comments in there that I do want to get to. Brennan, I see you're coming in. You're coming through here with Tyler Lockett. It's the fact that he's 33. He's a little older. He's on the plus side, and it's just that he's going to be affordable. So I see where you're coming from with that.
This episode is brought to you by Casamigos Tequila. What do you bring to a holiday party? Simple. A bottle of Casamigos. Because nothing gets the party started like a Casamigos margarita, which isn't just for summer. In fact, it's the perfect pour all year round. Casamigos is the gift that always feels right, because anything goes with my Casamigos. Please drink responsibly. Imported by Casamigos Spirits Company, White Plains, New York. Casamigos Tequila, 40% alcohol by volume.
Finished training for the day? Time to fight post-workout fatigue with Core Power Protein Shakes. They're packed with 26 grams of high-quality protein to build muscle and electrolytes to help hydrate. The nutrition you need to help your body replenish, rebuild, and repair post-workout so you can power on to the next one. Champion your recovery with Core Power. Visit corepower.com to learn more.
Jeff Holton says we're going to have to draft a wide receiver. Yeah. I mean, this is a position that you need to address. It was actually a position that I pounded the table for in the spring. I said that this was a spot that we're not going to pay a lot of attention to, but that you need to address. I floated names like Trey Harris and guys like that, like Jalen Noel. I mean, there were a lot of talented players in the draft last year, and I mean, you don't get any of them. I understand why. It's because you really, really, really needed some defenders to kind of make a big flip and turn it into a pretty solid class this year. And look, I'm happy with who the Falcons have. I'm not getting rid of Billy Bowman or Xavier Watts or Jalen Walker or James Pierce. None of them. I think they did a really good job with those guys, but there's a problem when you start losing draft picks and you trade draft picks, and that all of a sudden you lose draft capital and then you lose out on tons and tons of depth. But yes, I agree with you. Jeff, I think that the Falcons are going to draft a wide receiver. I think that's becoming a very clear need for this team moving forward. Especially if Casey Washington, a wide receiver you did draft last season, doesn't pan out. So you still have a little bit of shelf life on him, but I think you need to invest a little bit more equity there into the wide receiver position specifically, because you have a young quarterback who kind of needs some support there. Jeff Holton, you comment, what's up with Chris Blair? I thought he was a good option. I agree. So actually, Chris Blair was my top option when it comes to elevating somebody on the practice squad. I think he's probably going to be your first bet. You know, he's going to give you at least a little something and a little athleticism on the outside. That's my preferred option, just if you stay in-house, because I do think that they're going to elevate somebody. But it's also one of the realities of having two guys on special teams who also line up as a wide receiver. I mean, Kadarius Hodge he might give you something, like a little bit. He'll line up there. But, I mean, ultimately, he's not going to give you a whole bunch in the wide receiver room. And Jamal Agnew doesn't even line up as a wide receiver, doesn't practice as a wide receiver. I don't think I saw him take a single rep at the wide receiver position during training camp. But no, Chris Blair, I think, is somebody who can absolutely do that. Brennan says, would the Dolphins really part ways with their second or best player for a future first? Yeah, no, for a future first, they absolutely would. But again, that's high level. It's something that you've seen teams do in the past. I mentioned a few, DeAndre Hopkins was one that was traded. I mean, you talk about Calvin Ridley, who was traded. You talk about A.J. Brown, who was traded. A lot of those were traded in the offseason, but a few of these were traded in season. I mean, to answer your question, yes, they would potentially. Would they this year during the season? No, probably not. It's something that you would do. I mean, assuming that you move on from Mike McDaniel, which there's a very real chance if the Falcons do what I think they can do on Sunday, then you're going to be looking for new players. But he's also under contract for the next couple of years, and I just don't see it happening. So I wanted to put his name on there, mostly, Brennan, because I've seen his name thrown around a lot in Falcon circles and people wanting to say, hey, I want to go get this guy. And a big piece of me just says it's not really all that realistic. It's wondering if the Falcons really want to go for it. But the Falcons don't have a future first anyway. So we don't have that 2026 first round pick because we used that to go get James Pierce. So for better or for worse, it is kind of a dream. I see you guys are kind of going back and forth there. Jacoby is my favorite too. Yeah. So Brennan, we tend to agree. So Jacoby Myers is my top option here for the Atlanta Falcons. I just think he makes the most sense. I think of the things that the Falcons need the most, the number one thing is they need a guy who can get out there and beat man. Darnell, I mean, he can potentially do that, but he just hasn't really been healthy. And you haven't seen the production that you need. And Drake's great. Drake is Drake. This guy's basically a basketball player. Doesn't need a whole lot of separation in order to go, beat defenders. But the numbers for Michael Penix when he's facing man versus when he's facing zone coverage, pretty glaring, so that's something where Jacoby Myers should instantly become one of the top options. Brennan Kirk, not Cousins. Yes. Christian Kirk would be nice for the right price. That's a good call. I appreciate you, Brennan. Yeah, that one kind of popped off at the top of my head. All right. I see some other folks jumped in here. So I want to come back to Rusty's comment. So Rusty started the show off. He says, I'm more worried about our quarterback right now than I was after his first start last season. I would also like to see a little fire under him. Sometimes he's too nonchalant for my liking. Well, Rusty, this is one of the realities of having a young quarterback in the NFL. They're going to struggle, and his struggles, I would say, are, not as big as some struggles elsewhere. And look, not every guy is going to come in and be what Jackson Dart is up in New York right now, getting a lot of fanfare. In that situation, is not always as wonderful and fantastic as it may seem. Albeit, look, they're doing well. It's not always like Bo Nix or Jaden Daniels or something like that. Oftentimes it takes a little bit of time. As far as the progression of where Michael Penix is, he started 9 games at this point, and he's had some really good moments and he's had some really not so good moments. That's life of a young quarterback. And this is one of those things that, when I first started doing this podcast, I want to say it was one of the first shows that I did. I talked about realistic expectations for him. And, as of right now, the realistic expectations are kind of lining up, and his status for Sunday is technically in doubt. I don't think it's going to be a question. I think he is going to end up playing. Just based off of his comments, based off of Raheem Morris's comments, Zach Robinson, etc. Based off everything that they've said, I think he's going to play. But as of right now, he's currently on track for something in the range of about 4,000 yards, maybe a hair under that, and like 17 touchdowns and like 11 interceptions or something. Not sexy, awesome numbers, but those also have a lot of room to change. You're not even halfway through the season yet. So you still have plenty of time to up those numbers a little bit, especially now as we get into the second half of the schedule, which I would say is admittedly a lot easier to some degree than the first half of the schedule. We'll see. And as far as him not having fire, it's the same kind of comment that I heard a lot about Matt Ryan. There's plenty of fire when it shows up on the football field. This is the same guy who picked a fight with the entire Tennessee Titans over the summer. So I see what you're saying, because he's very calm in front of the media. He's calm. Like whenever you watch his mic'd up or anything like that, he's very calm. Nonchalant is not the word I would use, because this guy talks plenty of smack and we've heard him do it. Like I mentioned, he picked an entire fight within the entire Tennessee Titans during the summer. So the guy's got plenty of fire, and he'll step up for himself if he needs to. All right. Hopefully Hopeful 7 comes back, and this is a little earlier in the podcast. I'm just trying to come back to some of these earlier questions. So do you think that we go for the trade deadline or possibly try Nick Nash again? Nick Nash does not feel like an option for me at this point. He's on the practice squad. He will remain on the practice squad, and he'll get another opportunity, I would imagine, next summer. He just needs more time to progress. Maybe you can get him in and get him an elevation later in the season or something like that, but I don't foresee that Nick Nash is a viable option for the Falcons as of right now. He's pretty well below several of these guys that I would probably feel more comfortable with. And Nick, he was a UDFA. That's the life of a UDFA. And I know a lot of people got really excited about the prospects of Nick Nash, but this is also a guy who, he transferred from playing quarterback only pretty recently, and he's still pretty raw at the position. He has some big numbers from college, but this isn't San Jose State. This is the NFL, and you saw some of the learning curves. And that's not a knock on Nick either. He's a good player. Don't get me wrong, please, but he has a ways to go before he's ready to play every Sunday or potentially be a viable option for them. And that's just my opinion. All right, Sam Klontz, I saw your question. I wanted to give it a second, and I was going to come back to it. I'll just go ahead and jump into the injury report just for your viewing pleasure here, Sam. He asked for the latest on Billy, Jalen, and Storm. I'll give you the latest on everybody. So Jalen Walker is dealing with a groin injury. He was a DNP again today. They did not practice yesterday, but he was in estimated DNP, which means did not practice. I don't think he's going to play on Sunday. I don't know this for a fact, but I'm worried that this is the same groin that he was struggling with over the summer. And that's not uncommon. This is a spot where soft tissue issues, especially in the groin, can flare up. And they can bother you once, they can seemingly go away, and then they can come right back. And I'm worried that that's kind of the situation that Jalen's in right now. Soft tissue issues are, they just are. I don't know how long he's going to be on the shelf. I would be very surprised if they made the decision to put him on IR or something like that, but I don't think he's going to play on Sunday. The same can be true about Billy Bowman. He's dealing with the knee hamstring issue right now. It's just the hamstring, actually, not the knee. But he's dealing with a hamstring, another soft tissue issue. He has missed now 2 consecutive weeks, and he hasn't practiced at all since having the issue. I mean, it flared up on a Friday before the game against Buffalo. But he didn't play that game. He didn't play after that in San Francisco. And if he still has not practiced, I mean, he didn't practice today. If he doesn't practice tomorrow, there's no chance he plays. And if him not practicing today tells me that it's a bad sign. So I do not expect that Billy Bowman's going to play. I would expect that we do get D. Alford in that slot role again, who has been playing pretty well out of that position. All credit to D. He has done a fantastic job this year. And then Divine Diablo is the other DMP from today. He is not going to play, obviously, on Sunday. He has a forearm fracture. There is a chance that he ends up going on the injured reserve. But as far as your limited people are concerned, Darnell Mooney, he's still dealing with the hamstring stuff. He's going to remain limited. I doubt they get him in as a full participant here for any period of time. I don't know what the future is there. Michael Penix, he's dealing with the bone bruise in his knee. He was limited on Wednesday. He was limited again on Thursday. Again, I mentioned it before. I do think that he plays on Sunday. Tyler Algier and Mike Ford, both of these guys were limited today and yesterday. Both were limited again today. I don't think it's going to impact their ability to play, but again, TBD. Jake Matthews, very much in that same regard. He's still dealing with that ankle injury. The dude's an Iron Man. He's a freaking tank. He's not going to not play. He had that ankle brace, and I don't know if you guys saw the image of the ankle brace. It's a pretty bulky thing. I saw him walking around in the locker room. He's fine. He's moving okay. But he would absolutely be a guy who's going to be wearing that ankle brace again on Sunday, but he will be playing come hell or high water. Zach Harrison, Leonard Floyd, Felipe Franks, they were also listed on this injury report. Leonard Floyd, although for rest reasons, it was not injury related. He's just a veteran. He's been around the block. I'd be surprised if those guys didn't play, but again, Friday's going to give us kind of a better look about that. Jordan Fuller, he was a full participant today, as was Storm Norton. Storm had both of these guys had their 21-day windows open. Storm, more importantly, had his opened on Wednesday. So I doubt he plays on Sunday. This is not kind of that situation. So to answer your question, Sam, I don't think he plays on Sunday. I don't think he's activated Sunday. I think that'll be a next week type of situation. I would not be surprised if Jordan Fuller is activated. If Taquan Graham's sort of situation, the way that they brought him back, is any indication of how they're going to bring somebody back from the IR, unless there is an absolute need and you need him to get in there right away, you're probably not going to activate him and push him through the process a little bit too fast. So I'd expect that Jordan Fuller is the guy who you would activate this week, and maybe you get him into the secondary and see what happens. But Storm is probably at least another week away, but we shall see just as he ramps up to game speed. It is a TBD on that regard. All right, hold on 1 second. I'm going to take a quick sip of water.
The family that vacations together stays together. At least, that was the plan. Except now, the Dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for this day.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
All right. I'm not going to say that name. Well, I will. JLTCDM369. He asked, what's the deal with Troy Anderson? Ulbrich didn't mention him at all when asked about how the Diablo injury would be handled. Excuse me. Ulbrich didn't mention him at all because he is not on the active roster. Just to answer that question, that's a head coach question that you would ask, and we've asked Raheem Morris about Troy every single week here for the last couple of weeks, going back to the bye week, which is the first opportunity that they would be able to return him from the PUP reserve list, and we still have no update. So as far as what his season could look like, if he has a season here in Atlanta, it all remains to be seen. I don't know. To answer your question, I haven't seen him at Flowery. I haven't seen him once. He is an enigma, and at this point, I have absolutely no idea if he's going to play this year. I'd say that that's just an overwhelming disappointment with Troy, just in general. I mean, it sucks. It really sucks with the situation now, with what's going on with Divine Diablo. This was his golden opportunity, to come back and kind of jump into that starting spot and kind of show what he can do. But it does not appear that it is going to be in Atlanta. I just don't think that it's going to happen. But again, we still have a little bit of time. We can still see something that happens. I would not hold my breath. We'll keep asking about him just because we still got more than half the season left. It's a work in progress. And I mean, there is the only update that they give us is that there is no update. And that's all I can relay to you, unfortunately. Scott says, is Nick Nash even still on the team? Yes, he's on the team. He's at practice squad. I actually saw him in the locker room the other day. JMP_O says, why is Raheem really bad at answering questions in general, even injuries? He always has to be really pushed to say anything useful about them. It's just coach stuff. I've seen different guys are different, or they act in different ways when it comes to answering questions like this. I know Raheem, he's going to beat around the bush a little bit. It's just kind of what he does. And it's something that you just sort of have to pick up in time. I can't answer that question. I don't know. That's a Raheem thing. It's just who he is. And he doesn't want to disclose a lot of information. So it is what it is. I mean, I've asked him several different questions in several different ways, and he generally answers it pretty much the same way. But again, every coach is a little bit different with that. I'm going to catch back up. So Jeff Holton comes through and says, are we really going to roll with JD Bertrand at linebacker? Yeah. That's the plan. There isn't really much of a plan B per se. I mean, look, they've got other guys on the roster. D'Angelo Malone cross-trained at the position. Josh Woods is also somebody who could potentially put there. And I know a lot of people were really happy and pleased with what they saw from him during preseason action. But JD Bertrand's the guy, and I mean, unfortunately, Devon Achane is a very similar type of cat to Christian McCaffrey. Except he may not be quite as dynamic, but he's definitely a whole hell of a lot faster. So he's going to present a really interesting challenge here for the Falcons. I'm interested to see what they do, because we did ask Ulbrich about it. And when he answered, he said basically it was going to be a committee approach. And I mean, the impact that Divine Diablo had, that's about as good a situation as you can hope for. I mean, you're not going to one-to-one replicate what he's able to do. Just as somebody who is athletic as he is, who has the ball smarts of somebody who was in the secondary for many years. He started as a safety when he was at Virginia Tech. When he comes to the NFL, and then he transitioned to the linebacker position, which is Jeff Ulbrich's specialty. That's his specialty. That's what he loves to do, is transfer safeties in and play him at linebacker. But there isn't a one-to-one replacement outside of Troy Anderson, ironically, who could potentially match his athleticism plus his size and everything else. Troy was that guy, and I think Divine was the closest thing that they could find to, he's a better version of Troy Anderson. But as far as physically speaking, that's probably the best one-to-one comparison. But yeah, JD Bertrand's going to be the guy. He's going to line up. He's going to be the starter, but it's going to be a committee approach. So they're going to be rolling guys in and doing different things. And they're going to actually have a full week to prepare without Divine Diablo. So I'm interested to see what it actually does look like. Keep on rolling through. If JD is out there, we are cooked in the middle of the field. It's going to be an interesting test here. And look, I'm going to move into my thoughts on here on Sunday in just a moment. But he says the big helmet makes him top heavy. Yeah, that's funny. You always know where it's JD, when it's JD Bertrand. I mean, it's you just see the big old helmet. You see the helmet and he pops in. He stands out. Brennan comes through, says Helms needs a shot at linebacker for now. He's not going to be a guy who you can put into that spot, especially not mid-season, not unless you are just absolutely out of options, which the Falcons are not out of options yet. This is not a spot where the Falcons are in desperation mode necessarily. You're just going to option 2. And I'd encourage you guys, give JD a chance. I mean, this is a guy who, he struggled against San Francisco, and it was very frustrating. I share in your frustrations when you were watching that game. But at the same time, he's going to have a week of preparation, and this is a good coaching staff, and this is a good defense. It's a good defense. We'll see what they can actually do, and I wonder how they kind of toy around with that idea. Let's keep on rolling through. Oh, you say Helms would work at linebacker. Yeah, he hits hard, but we'll see. It's not quite the one-to-one. Good evening, Leon Mapstone over on Facebook. What's up, my man? Good evening. Good evening. I see G over there on Twitter says, Garrett just tuning in. I'm not worried about players. Could we please, for the love of God, trade for new offensive coordinator? Maybe, I don't know. It seems like there's a halfway decent chance that the offensive coordinator might move on his own. Nothing public to share on that regard yet, but stay tuned. We may or may not have some updates for that here in the next couple of weeks. But again, nothing is nothing's set yet. But again, TBD. All right. Keep on rolling through some of these comments and questions. I'm trying to catch them up. Jeff Holton says lack of offense is costing us wins. You're exactly right. And especially home versus away. And look, I'm going to use this to kind of jump back into the program, if you will. So my thoughts on Sunday. So of course you have the Miami Dolphins are coming to town. This is a 1-6 football team. This is a struggling football team. This is a squad who's lost 3 games in a row. 3 games in a row. And I want to be careful too, that when people think about this team and what this Dolphins team is, or what do you assume that they are or not, don't just let a 1-6 record fool you. I know this is, I don't know, maybe I'm sitting on a fence when I say this, but this is still an NFL team. This is still a team who's trying to play for their jobs and everything else, right? This is a squad who, last Sunday against the Cleveland Browns in a game where, it's raining, it's awful. The conditions are dreadful, and it's up in Cleveland. And I don't know many people who have a good attitude about having to go to Cleveland. And 1-6, it's brutal, but you also threw 3 interceptions in this game. And it's not like the Browns did a whole lot in this game to really make it look like a 36, was it 33-3 or 33-7 or whatever it was? He killed them. It was a slaughter, but a lot of it came down to turnovers. And if the Falcons can do that, then power to them. That's a situation where if the Falcons can force 3 turnovers, they're going to win this game going away. But this is also a Dolphins team that's hung around pretty close in some of these other games. Let me pull up this schedule real quick. I meant to write this down, but I didn't end up doing that. But coming through, so this is a team who you lose to the Chargers 29-27, you lose to the Panthers 27-24, and then you have the win over the Jets a little bit earlier in the season. A lot of these games are 1-score games. This is not just an objectively bad football team. They're struggling right now. They're really, really struggling. And this is a game that if you expect to be a playoff team, you need to go win. So don't get me wrong. I'm going to predict the Falcons to win this game, and I'm going to predict this team to win by more than a touchdown. You should. because you're a better football team. But anybody who thinks that you're just going to come in here and do what the Browns did to them last week, that game was a fluke. That game was kind of blown up out of proportion because turnovers and stuff like that get in the way. And you can't really predict turnovers at the level that they had them in that game. But as far as what they're going to do, I mean, this is a Mike McDaniel offense, and it's built into the same tree, of course, as Kyle Shanahan. They coached together for over a decade. There's a lot of similarities here. And this is also, you got Devon Achane and Jalen Waddle. Those guys are going to be difficult. They're going to be motioned all over the field. I think they have motions on something like 79, 80% of their plays. And it's by far the highest in the NFL. But it's team speed. Speed. They're all over the place. And now they're going to be running around on that turf at Mercedes-Benz. And if you've ever watched the soccer team play, or maybe not recently, but this is a squad who, Achane in particular, they like to get out in space. And if you want to say, you want to see some of the similarities, I guess you could say, between a Mike McDaniel offense and a Kyle Shanahan offense. Devon Achane is one of 3 players in the NFL with 400 yards on the ground and 200 yards in the air. Only 3 players in the NFL have that. One of them is Bijan Robinson. The other one's Christian McCaffrey. That's how good Devon Achane is and how dangerous he's going to be in this game. And if you're going to get a Falcons defense, it's going to be on the ground. CMC, that attack style that Jeff Ulbrich runs, CMC kind of had his way with it. He burned the Falcons. He had 2 touchdowns in the game. Granted, one of them was on a pull, which is a flag, but I'm not going to get into that. But he averaged 5.5 yards per carry. He had 129 yards on the ground. He burned the Falcons. And when you have a lot of those motions and you have a quarterback who's going to drop back and do everything else, and you can attack those open lanes from when some of these defensive linemen are pushing up the field, right? They're going to try and go in for the kill on a quarterback who's struggling, and they think that they might be Superman in that, and that's where they get the ball to Achane, and he's able to make them miss, and he burns up the field. And this is a guy who is averaging 5.5 yards per rush since he entered the league in 2023. There is a very good chance that Devon Achane has a really big game. But the problem is, for the Dolphins at least, that Jalen Waddle's really good, but they're struggling to get him the ball. I think it was today or yesterday, says that his height is the reason that he's struggling to do that. Not exactly what you want to hear from the guy that you're paying $55 million every year, but this game is less about the Dolphins offense and more about their defense, or really the lack thereof. They're allowing 160 yards on the ground per game. That's by far the worst in the NFL. By far the worst in the NFL. And one of the other comparisons is you look at what the Bills were in terms of explosive plays. They were just as bad as this Dolphins team. And the Falcons hurt them in that game. And I think that you're going to do even worse in this one, right? Because granted, the numbers were better against Cleveland in terms of total yards and everything, but Quinshon Judkins killed him. He killed him, and it would have been a lot worse if Tua doesn't turn the ball over and give them short fields, and you had bad conditions and everything else. But as far as the Falcons are concerned, I want to see their offense really get back on track. That's the biggest thing. That's what matters more to me than anything outside of getting a win. Falcons, you had 10 points against San Francisco. That's not good enough. But it's also indicative of some things that we've seen from them just in terms of trends. The home Falcons are pretty good. You're 2-1. You have an average of 26 points scored and allowing 21. That can always be better. But you're winning games there. On the road, it's not exactly the same. You're 1-2. You're 10 points per game. That's unacceptably bad. And again, what doesn't help is that you had the donut that you had against the Carolina Panthers. And then you had the dismal performance that you had last week. But don't forget that game that you had up in Minnesota was also not that great either offensively. You ran the ball really, really well, but you couldn't turn it into points. That's why you're averaging 10 points per game and 18 points per game allowed. Michael Penix specifically is not doing very well on the road. Again, it's because a lot of these games that he is, I don't know how much it has to do with the games that the teams he's played versus the being on the road. I don't know how much it goes into that. Again, sample size is going to tell us a little bit more about that just in the coming weeks. But he's averaging 287 yards per game passing at home. He's averaging 192 on the road. Sub 200 is generally not going to be enough to be qualified as a franchise quarterback. 287 yards per game, that's pretty damn good. And that'll get you a second contract here with whatever team you are. But specifically the touchdowns, he scored 9 touchdowns at home. This team has scored 9 touchdowns at home versus 2 on the road. This game's going to be in Atlanta, so I think that's really going to help. And ultimately, this offense is going to go as Tua goes. They're going to want to give the ball to Achane, but if the Falcons can build a lead quickly in this game, then you're going to have to turn to Tua and hope for him to kind of keep you in this. And I mean, he's really, really struggling. He's got 10 interceptions. He's from 3 interceptions in a game in consecutive weeks. Mike McDaniel feels like a guy who knows he's on the way out. He knows he's about to get fired. It just depends on whether or not they play like it. There's always this barometer of where a team is pointing. I mean, the team's clearly not pointing up, but they haven't quit on him yet. After last week, you're 1-6 right now. I think that there is a somewhat decent chance that you just see a stinker here from the Dolphins. And if the Falcons are able to build a lead, you make them quit and it's over. I wonder if the team still believes in Mike McDaniel. We shall see. But the Falcons, I mean, they're going to send a lot of pressure. I mean, Jeff Ulbricht's going to be all over these guys. And the Falcons have done a really good job of shutting down passing offenses this season. So I think that's really, really what it comes down to for the Atlanta Falcons. All right, I'm going to come back in. I'm going to answer a couple more questions. That's kind of my thought here. I don't know. I think somebody asked me to do score predictions. The last time I did a score prediction, it didn't go very well. So I think I said that the Falcons were going to beat the Commanders and the Bills. So, I mean, I guess it went well there. But the Falcons are going to get a win. I want to say that they covered the 7.5. That's just what the number is right now. I'm pretty confident in that fact. So we'll just leave it at that. All right, here we go. Coming on, roll through. Yeah, Brennan, I see you, man. He's literally talking about how we need a wide receiver. Yes. We need a wide receiver. We do. This is a Falcons team who, they need a little bit more stuff. I see Brennan says, I wish is that Ryan Nielsen? You're talking about Ryan Nielsen still? Was our head coach. He should have been promoted rather than let go for Raw. No, I don't think that's accurate necessarily. Ryan Nielsen was not ready to be head coach. There's a reason. I don't even think he interviewed for the job. There's a chance he would have been retained as the defensive coordinator, but yeah, he might be considered for future jobs. I know you mentioned the Jacksonville's defense is insane. Good for them. I don't think that Ryan Nielsen was in any way ready to be a head coach in the NFL. Maybe in the future, but we shall see. Jeff Holton says, if we can't run the ball, we are sunk. As far as Sunday's concerned, I do think that the Falcons should be able to run the ball pretty well. This is going to be, Tyler Allgeier's on the injury report. I think he should be fine. He should be a full go for this game. But Bijan, I just don't know how they're really going to slow him down in this game. Brennan says Troy needs to be let go this offseason. Sad face. He's taken up a spot at this point. Well, technically he is, but technically he's not on the active roster, so he's not taking up a spot necessarily. He's on the PUP reserve. And if he will be let go of this offseason because this is the last year of his contract. So it's about whether or not they bring him back. I just don't think that you are. It sucks that you spend a second-round pick, and it's just not going to work out. But such is the way of the NFL. Things are hard. Keep on rolling through. I see G. You're coming through. He says he'll never play for the Falcons, made of glass. Another wasted second-round pick. You guys are just kind of rolling through here with Troy. So I'm going to skip ahead for a little bit. Still on the linebackers, trap game. So Jeff comes through. He says it's a trap game. Maybe not a trap game necessarily. I don't think trap games. So just flash that up there for everybody. I don't think that there are. He says Dolphins will have a career day against us. You better hope not. And I was going to be worried, a little bit more worried if the Dolphins did end up moving on from Mike McDaniel after last week. If there was a time that you were going to fire your head coach and bench your quarterback, it'd be after he threw 6 interceptions in 2 games and lost by just a ton of points to a really bad Cleveland Browns team. You lose 31-6 to the Browns. That's tough. a career day, I don't agree with that. And if the Dolphins have a career day, then you might have to be talking about different conversations. But I don't think that happens. And trap games, I understand in theory trap games are a thing. These are also professional athletes, and trap games shouldn't exist in the NFL. Brent says, how many picks Tua throwing? Over under 2.5. If he throws a second pick, like say it's in the first half or something, if he throws a second pick, I would not be surprised if Quinn Ewers comes out for the second half. He's already been benched once, and at that point, then you're starting to look at a different situation. Keep on rolling through. Yeah, Brennan says Browns have great defense. I see you guys were having a conversation here in the comments. Right, Michael Ronquillo, what's up, my man? He always likes to drop in the hearts, man. How you doing? The red and black specifically. Terry Clark says, I really think Tua has lost this team. I see some people have some score predictions. Terry Clark comes in and says Atlanta 20, Miami 10. I think that'd be just fine. Some people kind of rolling through. Michael Ronquillo says, always great to hear from you, my friend. And look, yes, it is a bit of a concern. And Eric, your concern is the Falcons stopping the run. Yeah, I mean, that is their biggest concern. If they struggle to stop the run on Sunday, this is going to be a game that's going to be a lot closer than some people really are comfortable to admit. And I would not be surprised if Mike McDaniel knows that. I don't think he trusts Tua right now, but I just also don't think that there's another option for them right now on the roster. So you're going to turn around and hand the ball off about 25, 30 times to Devon Achane. Falcons need to have an answer for that. And I wonder what that's going to be, but I would expect that they do okay. All right, folks, I really appreciate all of you guys for jumping in here. It's been a lot of fun. We had over 100 people here kind of jumping in at various points. It's always great. It's always great to talk some Falcons. And look, hopefully we'll be having a Victory Tuesday podcast on coming up next time. But make sure you tune in. Make sure to like and subscribe everything. Hit me up on Twitter at GChapATL. That's the best place to stay in touch with everything that I have going on. If I have content coming out, that's generally where I push it. But make sure that you check it out there. But as a reminder, Scott and Nick, they are going live at 8:30 on Monday and Wednesday. But if there's content that you want to see, hit me up on Twitter. That's the best place to do it. But head on over to Falcons on SI or si.com/NFL/Falcons. And then you can check out all the Falcons content that we have up there as well. But again, I tweet it out all the time. But make sure to like the video. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to set that reminder for every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 p.m. And you can jump into the live broadcast. Thank you so much for everybody who joined, whether you're live or you're on podcast. We will see you again on Tuesday. Hopefully, it is a Victory Tuesday edition. But my name is Garrett Chapman for Falcons on SI. This is the Falcons Podcast. We'll see you next time. But until then, go Falcons.